Hey, this is Dr. Darwin, the new dentist coach, with another episode of This Week in Dentistry. I'm joined actually with my co-host, Dr. Evelyn Samuel. Hey, Doc.
Hello.
We're here again. It's that time. It is that time. Actually, it is that time. So we're waiting for people to come on so that we can continue our weekly show. This is a weekly show where we talk about all topics dentistry related, whether they be dentistry related as far as topics on clinical dentistry, procedures, or even newsworthy topics like one we had last week with student debt, things that plague us as dentists, or things that we have to deal with as dentists, or issues regarding legislation, things that are coming up down the pipeline that is going to affect the practice and the delivery of oral health care. This week's topic, we're actually going to be talking about dentistry. Dentistry as a commodity. Let's talk about that. Ooh. All right. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Is dentistry a commodity, or is it a valued service? What do you guys think? Is dentistry a commodity or a valued service? What do you guys think? That's today's topic. That's what we're going to be talking about today. All right. Or tonight, rather. That's what we're going to be talking about. So we want you guys to join us and share your thoughts. Be sure to just write your updates down at the bottom here. You can share with us what you think. You can put in a smiley face. You can type up some comments. We want those comments to be interactive. All right. See, just like that. You can just put that in just like that. Just like I did. All right. But the thing is, we want you guys to share your thoughts all throughout tonight's show. Okay. And again, tonight's show is about dentistry as it relates to it being a commodity or a value service. Now, Dr. Samuel kind of picked this topic for tonight. There was a couple of things that she saw that she was reading this past week that she kind of like pushed her in this direction. So, Dr. Samuels, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about the article that kind of gave you the jump start to kind of us to talk about this tonight?
Sure, absolutely. So first off, I hear a lot of dentists talk about things like this all the time. Dentistry being not as valued as it should be per se. And I saw an article this week in Dental Economics, the August issue. And the title of the article was "The Difficult Task of Competing with Discount Implant Centers." So basically, the gist of the article was that these implant centers are popping up all over the place. And they're selling these, and I'm saying selling for lack of better terms, but they're promoting implants at a ridiculously low price, which causes a problem for other offices who are doing implants as well, who may be doing a very in-depth procedure, but they're worried about having to compete with these centers popping up who are selling these implants for really low prices. So the thing is it's dentistry or even this procedure of implants. And those of you who are watching know how the implant process is. It's pretty involved. Is it a commodity? Is it just like something you would go buy at a store? And that's the thing. And there's a huge difference in terms of a commodity and something that's valued. A commodity, of course, is something you can purchase. Let's say, give me an example, Dr. Darwin. Any kind of object you can just buy.
A TV.
A TV, perfect example. So you can buy a TV and There, of course, are nicer versions of the TV, but you can buy from different places, and the price might vary somewhat because it is a good. It'll be around the same ballpark price, but the service may be slightly different, but you can get it anywhere. So it's a commodity. And so the argument then becomes, as dental professionals, as doctors, we're providing a service. So it shouldn't be a commodity because there's different things factored in when you're doing the service, such as the doctor's training,
Right.
such as the facility, such as the patient experience, such as the team's training, such as the materials you use. So it's like comparing apples to oranges, it could be. So it's different. You're getting a service and people should value the service. So the article went on to talk about how do you compete with this. So if you're in an area and you see all these implants being sold, there again, for lack of better terms, for these really, really low prices, and you have your office to consider, you have your overhead to consider, you have your labs to consider, how do you compete with this? What do you do? And how do you compete with it? So you have basically three choices. Want to hear three choices?
Three choices to deal with the service. I mean, to make your practice not be a commodity, so that it's more or less centered around service. All right, so that's what we're talking about. Yeah, I want to hear these three things. So these are what now?
So these are basically three ways that this particular article says you can deal with these companies coming in and offering these ridiculously low prices. And I see this all the time, not just for implants, but in some of the groups I'm in. I'm in Facebook groups with a lot of different dentists, and we talk about procedures and materials. And I see people posting ads to say the same thing. They might clip an ad that they saw from another dentist, and they might be advertising veneers really low or services really low, and they're asking, how do you compete with this? So this particular article says there are three ways that you can compete. One, which would be to decrease your cost, which in a range that's kind of comparable to these companies that are within your a certain mile radius of your office. So
decrease your fees?
Yeah, now this is what they're saying. If these companies are taking over, and how do you compete with this? You could lower your price to try to compete with them to get more patients. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just one way someone might approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you could keep your price the same regardless of what anyone else does. That is probably what I would do. Okay, so therefore you increase your services, you decide your office culture, you make your experience exceptional, you get the training, and you provide an exceptional service. And that would be what I would recommend to do. Not to lower your price, because I think some of these companies are really large and it can always go lower because they may have the funds to do so. But I would say you would do what you would like to do ideally. And then you would attract the type of patients who know what you do, who you do it for, and appreciate your services. So my the number two recommendation would be what I would recommend as well. And then number three, this author decided to become a center for implant complications and advanced rescue of implant problems. So basically, instead of just placing the implants and...
Oh, that's you, Dot. I think that was you. I think your paper. So
Okay.
You're saying your ideal is what now?
So basically, there are three different ways. The first way that the author is saying that you can deal with this is to lower your price so that you're competing with the other people who have lower prices. I wouldn't recommend that. The second way they said is that you could keep your prices the same regardless of what other people do. And so that would be my recommendation. That's what I would do. You provide an exceptional service. You make sure that your team is trained properly. You make sure that the patient has a good experience in the office. and that you are using top labs and top materials, and you have your services and you charge what you're worth, and I believe you will attract the type of patients who know who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. So you're going to attract the type of patients that you want to come to your practice to do the exceptional treatment instead of lowering or cheapening your dentistry. That's what I would recommend.
Gotcha. Now, doing something like that requires that you have a plan. I have a service plan or a customer service plan as part of your philosophy, as part of your mission, your vision, and I think that's one of the areas that a lot of new dentists and even established practices really need to continue to focus on, to maybe revamp, reinstitute some things, and maybe put in new systems or update their systems, because that's the one thing that patients will notice, right?
Exactly.
Of course, they're going to notice the color of the crown. They're not going to see your lab, so they don't know about that.
And they're not going to see your perfect margins, unfortunately.
Right. They're not going to see your perfect margins. They're not going to know anything about the technical side.
Right.
But the things that they're going to know is how they are treated, whether or not we hurt them, how they related to them, talked to them, and really how they treated them, right? How related to them, treated them. But there's another part that I think is important too, is just how we as providers, as business owners are building, what things are we doing to build that relationship, right?
Exactly.
Because I think if anything, that is what patients see the most, or can relate to the most, is relationships. We are in a business of relationships that happens to be oral health care. We are in a relationships building business, just like any business is built on or based on relationships, but even more so than dentistry, because we're doing surgery. We're having our hands in people's mouths and in some cases on certain parts of their face, depending on what type of procedures they're having done, reconstructive or jaw surgery or facial surgery, those types of things. And there has to be an element of good relationships and trust, right? All of that is important, but that also should be part of your plan of this right here: service, right? That is how we are going to be able to differentiate ourselves between being a commodity, something that everyone can pretty much get at the same price, or people go price shopping, which you mentioned, right? Because basically it's a quality. A commodity is a quality that's given to a particular item that might slightly differ, but it's uniform across all the people that make it, right? We mentioned the TV, like you said, there's different brands, different people that make it, but at the end of the day, it does the same thing across the board. And how you get it is the same way. Go to a store, you go to Amazon, they deliver it, you pick it up, unwrap it, plug it up, turn it on, boom. But dentistry is much different, like you mentioned. And I think that's the area, that's the part of our businesses that we have to continue to accentuate and bring to the forefront. All right. One of the things I tell residents all the time about building relationships with patients, especially now developing that skill and that training during residency, because in a matter of 12 months, a lot of them are going to be going directly into private practice, put into situations where their livelihood depends not only on their dentistry, but how they treat people, how people perceive them, whether people think they're trustworthy or not. So that all depends on the relationship that you're building with patients. And I think the number one service-related relationship item that I tell people to do is, and they laugh at me all the time, is after I deliver care to patients, whether they are, whether we give anesthesia or not, but more specifically, definitely when they give anesthesia, is follow-up calls.
Oh, absolutely.
Follow-up calls. Now, these follow-up calls are done specifically in a specific manner, right? Because I've told this to a lot of people, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, my office manager calls or one of the assistants calls. I'm like, no, no. Guess who has to call? You or me or the person, the actual provider, whether it be the owner of the office or the associate, whoever delivered care for that particular day needs to do the follow-up call. And I hear people say, oh, well, I don't have time to do it. I didn't do that in dental school. There's a lot of different things you didn't do in dental school. There's a lot of different things that you probably learned from other people that's not very service-oriented as well. And that could be the reason why you're having problems with your office. You have to take it to the next level. You have to be willing to do the things that other people don't want to do. And most people don't want to call their patients. So I remember one of the practices, that's what I was in charge of, making sure that all the providers and the hygienists, including the hygienists, call their patients afterwards. We made the front desk, the office managers give us a list. Every day, they gave us a list of what patients, what providers worked on, the telephone numbers, and we would call them after 7, right? Whether it was to leave a message on the voicemail or to actually talk to them one-on-one. Of course, talking to them one-on-one was great, but it's a quick cycle. It's a quick time period. You call them, hey, Miss Jones, this is Dr. Hayes. Just calling to follow up, see how you're making out after the appointment today. I know the anesthesia probably wore off, like I told you. How you doing? Who? Dr. Who? Dr. Hayes, my dentist? Yes, Dr. Hayes, dentist. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just so surprised. I've never had my dentist call me before.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, really? Oh, no, I always call people. That's what I do. Oh, thank you so much. I was a little sore, but, now that you call and hear your voice, I'm fine. Everything's good. Thank you so much for calling, yada, yada, yada. Boom, 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. But that goes so far and noticed by the patient with these follow-up calls because people don't do them. Right. And patients aren't used to them, right? They are not used to having a follow-up call. Definitely not coming from their
doctor or provider.
Oh, no, not at all. So that's what we're talking about, how you build relationships so that patients and customers, I even call them customers now. A lot of offices are calling their patients customers because that's what they are.
That's exactly
customers, consumers of the oral health care that we're providing them as a service. Oh man, I lost my train of thought thinking about these patients.
Well, you were just saying, rightfully so, that it goes a long way when you call a patient after a service. And it does, because like you said, it's something very simple, takes only a few minutes, but it goes such a long way with the relationship building.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, that's why I think service is super, meaning it supersedes anything that you got to do in the office as relates to patients. And that service starts before, actually, it really starts before the first phone call into the office, right? And I know you can talk a little bit more about that. But, it starts with your website and how people see you, how they come across. And then eventually they're going to get on that phone and they're going to call your office. And There you go. I mean, just that from that phone call it's going to set the tone of the relationship.
Higher office, yeah. That first phone call is well, like you said, when they find you in the first place. So your social presence, because everything is social proof. That's so important now. So everything from how your website is set up, how your reviews. We're gonna have to do a whole segment on social proof in reviews because people oftentimes trust the opinions of others that they don't even know nowadays with the reviews and social presence and social proof. But that first phone call, oh my goodness, that really sets the tone for everything. How your phone is answered, the questions that are asked. Does the patient feel welcome? Are they feeling rushed? Are you saying things to let them know that you're happy that they called the practice? Is that person smiling when they answer the phone? So there's a whole series of questions that you can route the patient through the first phone call to make them feel welcome and know that they've chosen the right place. And then, like you said, just service when they come into the office, from when they find you to the phone call to that whole new patient experience.
Yeah, and that starts this whole patient relationship and with your customers and how you're going to build it with them. And it's an art. It's an art that does not get taught at dental school. It's an art that does not get taught in residencies. And it's an art that sometimes is totally missing from dental businesses, from offices. And that's where, someone like yourself, Dr. Samuel, comes in and makes office or helps people get the tools to make their practices more efficient and things that they're doing, but more specifically be efficient with how they're building relationships with patients and building their customer base and maintaining that customer base too. All that it requires that you have a system and that you're efficiently working that system from every staff member in the office, right?
That's right. And there is a system for everything.
Right.
Absolutely.
Dr. Lowry gives us a high five there. She's clapping, say yes.
Hi, Dr. Lowry.
She's saying yes. She probably can't. She can agree a lot, right? Oh my goodness. That's cool. So again, my biggest thing as far as a service relationship patient relationship thing is, for me, it's the follow-up call. Just so adamant about it because it's something that most people are not willing to do and people don't do. And that's even in other businesses too. I've got a buddy of mine, Grant Cardone. I don't know if you guys have heard of Grant Cardone. Me and Dr. Evelyn have. And one of the things he teaches in his sales training for businesses and entrepreneurs is, once you make the sale, he teaches students, people that he coaches, to call or text the patient or text the customer within like 15 minutes after them leaving the store or whatever your business is, and say, hey, I forgot to show you something. I got something real nice I want to show you. And he'll get in communication with them that way, maybe to upsell them or maybe have an add-on or something of a service that he just gave them. But it's like another way of reaching out to the customer, to the consumer, to the patient, so to speak, and maintaining that line of communication. That communication line is so important, right? And I think some of us worry that we're calling the patients too much, or we email them too much, or that we texting them too much. And rightfully so, you may have some patients that say, you know what, Dr. Hayes, I applaud you for staying on me, and I need that from some time, but please opt me out. Okay, no problem. Opt out. We're not trying to bother you, but we're just really adamant about you understanding the importance of X, Y, and Z. But the other thought behind constantly staying in communication with patients and customers is that sometimes, well, most of the time, studies have shown that most people have to hear, see, and be contacted 3 or 4 or 5 times before they even clicking in their head that, yeah, I do want that whitening, or I do really need that crown. I need to go ahead and get this done. It may take them, it's like their mind playing tricks on them a little bit. It may take them, you contacted them 4 or 5, 6 times before it clicks for them that they need to get it done and that they're enthusiastic about getting it done. So that's another way of how you're building the relationship, staying in communication with patients. What else do you do in your office, Dr. Samuel, to kind of build that relationship and continue to make it more of a service-driven type of business for you?
So basically, like we were just saying, it starts with the social proof. And when the patients come in, we are definitely seating them on time. That's one of my big things. Making sure that they're seated on time, making sure that the procedures go well, making sure everything's in the room, making sure when we're done, they get a hot towel, aromatherapy towel, chocolates, and bottled water. So we just want it to be a really good experience for them. So they say, oh my goodness, I've never gotten chocolates from the dentist before. Mm-hmm. So while that's probably not, you don't really see the dentist giving you chocolates, everything in moderation, right? It's just something to make the patient feel like they've had a really good experience and to make them feel special. Like you said, also calling the patient or contacting them, but mainly just having those amenities in place when they're in the office, mm-hmm. Blankets and things of that sort. Can you hear me?
Yeah, blankets. Mm-hmm.
Blankets, aromatherapy, seeing them on time. And when they say, oh my goodness, this is the best experience I've ever had, we go ahead and use a service where we can get them to do a testimonial on the spot. Because oftentimes if you let them leave the office, they won't do it. People just get busy. And there again, that adds to the social proof because that helps your reviews go up because the patient is happy. You want them to retain that happy feeling.
Yeah, and that's where you can ask for referrals.
Exactly. Right? You can ask for referrals as well.
Yep. When you're asking for those testimonials and actually getting feedback from the patients, once they say that they've had a great experience, it was nothing like I had it before, yada yada, that's a green light to say, you know what, I'm so glad you had that experience. I'm glad we want you to continue coming back, and we want other people that you love and care about also to have that same experience. So feel free, if who do you know that may want to have this same type of experience, or who's looking for a dentist or needs some treatment, send them my way. I have no problem in being their oral health consultant if they don't have one. Oh yeah, I can think. Yeah, my sister was just saying that she needed to come to the dentist. She hasn't been in the dentist in a while. She just moved, got a new job, yada yada. And then that opens the door for new patients. But again, all coming from those, asking for those testimonials also, but that also has to be part of your system in your office, right? Getting those testimonials, using those to your best advantage, so you kind of can keep that cycle of happy patients, happy customers, more customers coming in, so that you can keep your doors open. But all of that has to be a system that everyone has to be part of, right? But I really like this one too. Start on time.
Absolutely.
You gotta start on time. Another thing that will differentiate your business from being thought as a commodity versus a value service. Start on time. Even if you are not starting the procedure on time, sit them in the chair earlier than their appointment starts, 5 minutes before, maybe. Okay. because when they start in the chair, that's the start of their appointment. And if you don't have the capacity to have, if you do run over, which can happen, right? You still want to have at least 1 or 2 chairs for overflow so that the next patient is not waiting. You don't want them to have a perceived notion that they are waiting, which happens all the time in medical offices. They're used to waiting there, but we can't go into the notion of, well, they're used to waiting in the physician's office, so they can wait here. No, you don't want that. Because that leads us back to the whole notion that differentiates medicine from dentistry. In medicine, it's definitely viewed as a commodity. Unless you're having a real specific procedure done by a specialist, anything else is going to be viewed as a commodity across the board. And making people wait and wait and wait and wait and say it's just built into the appointment, it's not acceptable. Yeah. It's not acceptable. And that's the thing that's going to kill your business from being viewed as a valued service. So as dentists, as dental entrepreneurs and practice owners and business owners, that's what you got to do to make yourself stand out and not, not be a commodity or be viewed as a commodity, So what do you guys think? I want you guys to share your thought. I know we had a couple comments. What do you guys think? How do you do it currently in your office? How would you like to do it? How do you know? What do you know about other people that do it? What are some of their successful actions? Or better yet, on some of the recommendations and ideas that we're sharing with you, why haven't you done it? I think that's the bigger question. Why haven't you done it? Maybe you don't feel the need, and that you're coasting along and you're going pretty well in your businesses. But who knows? Maybe if your business has hit your production, your revenues, your businesses have kind of hit a plateau or had a flat line, maybe there's something that's missing that's going to help you get over the hump and stay in a positive upward position. I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Samuel, what were some of the customers that you've had that you've been working with and coaching with your Efficiency Institute?
I think a lot of the things too is sometimes, some of the things I've heard recently is getting everybody on board in the office in terms of the team, things of that sort. So basically that's going to come down to your training. So you want to make sure that you're training properly so that everybody is on the same page. Because if you're creating this atmosphere of systems and productivity, everybody has to be on the same page. And that starts with proper training. So your team of proper training, that could be everything from your morning huddle. Something that's very simple to do, but not always done. Simple things that you put in place that assures that you're going to have a good day and that everybody is on the same page. One simple thing that I usually recommend in the morning huddle for teams is starting the day off with a positive quote. So that's very simple, but there again, it sets the whole atmosphere for the day. No matter what happens, today we're going to start off on a very high note. And there's just lots of other systems that can be implemented throughout the office in terms of passing off the patients through the office. Of course, that's going to facilitate running on time. And it's going to give the office a perception of being very professional. Patients will pick that up. They'll know that it's professional. They'll know that you're running on time, and they'll just think, wow, this place runs so smoothly, not really realizing that you've trained on all those things, but that it just runs so well. Yeah, and that's key what you just said. Because perception is reality. What people see is what they think it is. So you have to project that. You have to show that. You have to make sure that that's demonstrated.
from the beginning of the day, throughout the day, and at the end of the day, even at the end of the actual physical work day, again, with that follow-up call, I'm telling you, the perception is if you're calling me at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock and see how I'm doing, you must be concerned. Yep, I'm concerned. We're concerned. You're part of our oral health family. So, and you've entrusted me as your oral health advocate and consultant. So, yep, I'm calling to see how you're doing. Right? So that's what we've been talking about today. This week in dentistry, we've been talking about this whole notion of dentistry. Is it a commodity or is it a value service, and how you help your practice or help yourselves kind of differentiate from other practices so that it's not seen as a commodity. We've been talking about service, different things that you can do, service, and building relationships and how to do that, and having different ways that your service is key and is an important. Like I said, building relationships. One of the things that I like doing is the follow-up calls. Dr. Samuel mentioned your social presence, both social media, websites, and also how you are in the office, right? And making sure that people start on time. We talked about that, which is so key. One of the things Dr. Samuel's like is different little accoutrements in the office, blankets, aromatherapy. I know some people have these new headsets called NewCom, or just regular headsets where patients and customers can choose their own music that they want to listen to. That helps to kind of set your office apart. And then when it's all said and done, then you've got people doing testimonials and coming and telling more about what they liked, why they liked it, which is a source of future referrals. So all of this are things that help you as a practitioner and as an office to make sure that you're not a commodity and that you are more of a valued service. So that's our time for this week. This is Dr. Darwin, the new dentist coach, with This Week in Dentistry, where we've talked about dentistry as a commodity versus it being a value service. I want to thank Dr. Samuel, for my co-host, for being on today. And if you guys have questions or topics that you want to hear about or you want us to discuss and maybe have you be part of it, send me an email right here at newdentistcoach@gmail.com, newdentistcoach@gmail.com. And Dr. Samuel and I will take those questions and comments and maybe even have you come on and join us and give your point of view on This Week in Dentistry. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Be sure to check out the next video that's coming up over here. And a full replay of this will also be on my YouTube channel, Dr. Darwin Speaks, and also will be in Dr. Samuel, her YouTube page, which is the Efficiency Now podcast, and then also on the Efficiency Institute. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great night and see you next week on This Week in Dentistry. See ya.